Hello, I've had a question about this Independence Day chart for the United States, July 2nd, 1776, around 12 noon, could be around 11 a.m., somewhere close to there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the question is this: what about this moon conjunct Pluto? If the Independence chart is at 12 noon, 2.5 degree orb, and the person was saying, well, that does not sound like the United States to me. You know, all this emotional turmoil in Capricorn would be some kind of, dry, formal conflict. Or it sounds like a lot of, uh, internal strife, a lot of corruption possibly. And the person is saying, well, it doesn't describe the United States. To this person, the United States is more of an outgoing, progressive country. It doesn't feel right. Okay, so let me address that. Here's what I think is going on. This birth chart for the United States, July 2nd, 1776, is probably not the only birth chart. As I've mentioned, there are what I believe are anchor charts. So an individual has one birth chart, but a large collective, like a nation, and the United States, of course, is a large nation, it's going to have anchor points, critically important, powerful starting points that set into motion a thought form, a vision, a lifestyle, an activity. And this is one of them. And this one has to do with the United States saying, well, we are a country. We're not colonies of England. We are a free and independent nation, and we're going to do something new. We're not going to have a king. Everybody's been having kings. We're not going to have a king. We're going to have a government by the people, a new experiment. It's getting rid of the idea of kingdoms and introducing this new idea. Well, Moon Pluto is like past life stuff. Deep, heavy, conflicted, profound feelings and patterns that take over. It's like a genetic code that is so deep and profound that it takes a lot of work to sort through it all. And it has to do with Capricorn, with being objective and detached, and how we organize and how we structure things. This has to do with the overthrow of the king and the overthrow of a way of life in which people are identified by their place within a hierarchy and given the opportunity to create a life according to their abilities and their decisions. So it's wrestling with this whole heritage. This moon Pluto in Capricorn does not describe the entire personality of the United States. That's not what this chart does. What this chart does is it describes one theme, one lineage, one heritage, one aspect of the United States, the part of the United States that proclaims itself as being special, of being free, of being the inventor, of being outside the norm. This kind of, like you might say, arrogance and bravery, and the willing to go off into whatever adventure, the hero's quest. And in that hero's quest, there's the throwing off of the king and the rules and the hierarchy. So this is what this is about. And because it's Moon Pluto and it's complex, guess what happens? We do not really succeed at it. Ironically, what the United States does is it throws off the king and it embraces extreme slavery, where it takes people from their nation, puts them in boats, abuses them, takes away their names, beats them into submission, goes to war, and ends up also having multiple cultures come together, all suspicious of each other. I know when I grew up, as a kid, we had pejorative names for every kind of nationality because I grew up in New York, which is a melting pot. So you have this melting pot of people suspicious about the character of other people, the way they appear, all thrown together. Lots of abuse. Women don't get the right to vote till the 1920s. So the United States has this big vision of by and for the people, but it's still struggling 250 years later, still struggling to achieve it, and still having those deeply rooted prejudices. Deeply rooted prejudice is part of the American history, and we still have it. We still have this instinctual tendency to not feel just comfortable, to be classifying people. Capricorn, that moon Pluto is that heritage that we're working through. What happens when we work through it is that we will then see people for what they are and let them build their character based on something more inherent. I think what's going to happen also is the development of genetics, of ancestry, and astrology is going to all come in to force in the next few hundred years or more. It may take hundreds of years to give us insights into what issues, potentials, problems, opportunities are possible. Because if you have a gene that inclines you to a certain problem or whatever, that will become identified, your ancestry. So that's going to replace the classification by what group you happen to belong to. But it's still going to be something we're going to wrestle with. We're going to wrestle with this way in which we detach ourselves and identify people. And when is the United States going to build a sense of real connectedness and community like people have in their homelands? So people build mini communities, Irish community, Italian community, you name it, any kind of community, Jewish community, any based on religion or culture, to build that sense of closeness, because we get this distance that happens with Capricorn, which has its advantages and disadvantages. So that's what I think the moon Pluto is. It's not a description of the overall personality and overall view of what the American culture is, but it is a description of a particular heritage, a particular theme that has come down to us through this particular chart, anchor point, from July 2nd, 1776. So what I'm proposing is that there are probably multiple anchor points in which a movement begins, in which a basic concept begins. And this is the concept of the United States as a free and independent country. And what has gone into establishing that? The moon Pluto, it was established as not being a kingdom and wrestling with that deep, complex heritage and inheriting all the biases and not being able as yet to overcome them and still wrestling with it. So that's it, my friends. I wanted to just mention that to you, that I think that this is a valid chart describing a heritage, a lineage of ideas and visions and dreams that's part of the United States psyche, but it is not a simple description of everything about the nation or the way you might characterize the overall American culture. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.